Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining. We're gonna start. Get Instagram set up also. Okay, so we're gonna start with a mindfulness practice. Mindfulness means present moment awareness, non-judgmentally. You may have heard about it or not heard about it. You can choose to participate or not. Um, and mindfulness can be something that you can always access. It's something that brings you to this moment, not a moment 10 minutes from now, not a moment that was an hour ago. It keeps us here and now, which can be just super valuable. So I encourage people to have access to this as a skill. This is definitely something that you can share with children, with students. Anybody can benefit from having access to mindfulness. And so I just like to start with a mindfulness practice to bring us here to this moment here now. So for this practice, we're going to do something that's called a body scan. We're just going to be bringing attention awareness to our body, wherever it is right now. So you can start by getting into a mindful posture. That's just a posture that is awake and aware. So you might put your feet flat on the floor. You might open up your palms. So you wouldn't want to cross your arms or cross your legs. You want to kind of keep your body open and willing. You want to keep your back kind of straightish, not slumped over or anything like that. And you can close your eyes or put them in a place that's not distracting for you, like on your lap or on the floor. And for this practice, I want you to start by bringing attention and awareness to the top of your head. Just noticing that you have a top of your head. And if this is difficult, might be something you've never done before. If this is difficult, you can try just placing your hand on the top of your head. Might just help bring some awareness there. And with attention and awareness on top of your head, you can now allow your attention to move down to your ears and move attention into your chin and your neck. And in your neck, you might put some movement in, just kind of moving your head from side to side, back and forth. Small movements, doesn't have to be anything dramatic, but that can help bring your attention there. And maybe you're noticing an urge to switch positions or to be in a particular position or to allow your attention to go somewhere else. And I want you to notice the urges to go other places and to just come back to just being present with your neck. And you can move attention and awareness down into your shoulders. You can move your shoulders around if that's helpful. Just noticing that you have shoulders and moving attention and awareness down into your chest. Noticing how your breath moves your chest in small and subtle ways. And dropping attention and awareness down into your abdomen. And into your legs. You can move your legs a little bit if that's helpful. And just notice when your mind goes somewhere else, come back to the sound of my voice and come back to your legs. Moving attention and awareness now down into your feet. You can move around your toes. And now expand attention as if there's a spotlight that's backing up, that's taking in the whole view. Take in your body as a whole. Noticing any areas of tension or tightness, noticing an urge to shift positions or to be in a different or a right or a better position. And now center that that light onto your breath, noticing your breath coming and going. And when you're ready, you can move around your fingers, move around your toes, and bring attention and awareness back to the space that we're in. Okay. So usually I would ask for reactions to the practice. I always say mindfulness is only half done until we react. There's a lot to be said for reacting in a group setting. Given the space that we're in, the dynamic that we're in for this group, we're not going to do that today. But if you do share this with your children or students or with loved ones, I do encourage that aspect to be included. So my goal for today is to answer questions for wherever people are. I know we have people here from America and Israel, people who are in affected areas, not in affected areas. And I do want to kind of make space for whoever you are, whatever you're going through, addressing your questions and where you're at. I do have some questions that were sent in advance. I also hope to offer this. I would like to try to offer it every day, but we'll see logistically. So I will announce it day by day. Easiest way to check in if we'll be announcing it is if we will be having it is if you follow our WhatsApp status. So I will share in the chat what the status number is in case you don't have it. Best to follow us there. And so we do hope to offer it every night in Israel time, afternoon in American time, or in East Coast time. So judgmental of me. And please do send in questions if you want me to address something in particular. I'd be happy to do so. For today, I have a couple questions that were sent in, and then I'll go to the chat box. As long as you keep sending questions in, I will keep taking the questions. If you're on Instagram, you can also send a question straight here. So, I'm trying to see like 3 screens here. So, okay, so the first question that I see here is how do you react if somebody's saying unhealthy things? So if somebody is sharing how they're feeling about the situation and they're saying things that you're perceiving as being unhealthy or not good, and you want to kind of tell them be healthier or be like have more amuna, don't say that. The reason I wouldn't recommend saying that is because what you're saying is your feelings are wrong or don't make sense. There's usually going to be a very strong urge to actually have those feelings be more expressed because they're not being heard. So it's not particularly helpful. What is usually more helpful if you don't have this awareness, if somebody doesn't have this awareness and somebody does get this reaction, we can handle it. People are resilient. We can handle it. And if you are the person responding and you can hear the person and hear their kind of not such healthy thoughts or way of thinking about things, you can hear it and you can allow it and say, wow, like that sounds like a lot, or I'm so sorry you're struggling, or like that sounds like a lot to be thinking through. You can listen without necessarily giving feedback or righting their wrongs. So I would encourage that. I'm focusing on that, and really just focusing on listening and absolutely just listening. So whatever you can do, if you're in a situation where somebody is reaching out to you or where somebody could benefit from support, think of your role as just a listening role. I think this is also really important in terms of where we're at right now, where many people are kind of in acute trauma, like there's something going on right now. And when something is going on right now, people want very much, who are watching their loved ones go through something, want them to be okay. And the problem is that they're not okay because they're going through something right now. They're not okay. And we can tolerate that. We can tolerate the not okayness and allow them to have their process. And that actually is the healthiest thing that we could possibly have. The healthiest thing that we can offer people is space to go through what they're going through, rather than directing them to the right way of being, which just doesn't work. So that's, I think, pretty important. Okay, so the second question I see here is, how can I help? So I think similar to that first question, the most important thing, like I said, is listening, providing space, rather than offering a particular direction or a particular right way of handling or thinking about things. Like, you have to believe Hashem loves us. That's not helpful. Rather just listening to the person's own experience, what they're going through, how they're thinking about things. If you are going through your own, feelings or whatever, which I'm sure we all are, having a space where somebody can provide that for you is wonderful. If you don't have that space, you'll be okay too. You can provide yourself with that space. You can. And it's hurtful that we don't have more spaces like that, that we are unfortunately in a world where people don't hear it, people don't get it, people have a lot of misconceptions, and that is painful and real. And we can still provide ourselves with that open space to go through what we're going through. If you're able to provide that for somebody else, though, what I'm trying to encourage is open listening, a complete acceptance of where the person is, not redirecting, not correcting at all, and allowing the person to kind of go through where they are. So if a person's saying things that are complete lack of emuna, or sharing that their kind of like twisted ways of thinking about something that you think is really off or wrong, don't correct, just kind of allow and be with. The next question I have here is a parenting question. How to talk to really small children. So I did share a book we put together yesterday of talking to really small children. I think some important points to remember are not to lie, saying facts, and giving terms, explaining terms, answering questions honestly, and also spelling things out, being very clear about like what is going to happen, what is not going to happen. I want to also kind of direct this question both ways. I've heard this question from Israeli parents, but I'm also starting to hear this question from American parents. And I think that it's going to depend. If you're in a situation, like if you don't have to discuss this with very small children, then you don't have to discuss with very small children. Like, that's wonderful. If you want to discuss this with small children, that can potentially still be helpful. If your child is being exposed to older children or to their peers going through whatever they're going through, or having their own whatever, then you are going to have to address this. And not addressing it is really a great way to break at your child's ability to trust you or lean on you or believe that they are safe in your hands. Because if a small child is hearing their environment kind of denying what they are seeing is absolutely true. So for example, let's say a young child has an older sibling who is away in Israel for the year, and now all of a sudden they're coming back and everyone's saying everything's fine. Well, clearly not everything is fine if this person was supposed to go for a year and now they're coming back. So if you're not resolving that for them, they have to figure that out themselves or make sense of that themselves. And that is likely going to not end up in a place where they believe that they can come to you or discuss things with you or trust you as the safe person. If you own it from the start, you'll be in much better shape because they will come to you with their concerns. So what you want to do is own from the start that, oh, Leah is coming back from seminary tomorrow, right? She was so excited to go for a whole year to study, and she still wants to do that. Right now, Israel is not safe. What does that mean? Explain what that means if you're going to use that term. If you're going to say, right now, Israel is in a war, you want to explain what that means as specifically as you can for that child's age and stage. But yeah, the goal is to be as clear as possible and to explain what is and what is not happening in order to maintain their safety with you, in order to open up the door for them to listen to you, to rely on you, to know you as a safe person. So those were the questions that were sent in for today. If anybody else has questions, please send them in on either Instagram or in our chat box on Zoom. Happy to answer more questions. You can also unmute yourself and just ask straight on the Zoom call.
Yeah, hi. Can I ask a question?
Please go for it.
Okay. Yesterday I listened to your speech yesterday. You said like you gave techniques, like physical techniques, how to like calm yourself down. Could you repeat them?
Yes, Besimcha Rabba.
Okay.
Okay, so there are one very important thing, and I think that this is, and what I talked about yesterday, I think I focused more on that what I see circulating is, or going around to different places, to different people, is ideas for calming your body. And I want to just put that in its place and understand that that does certain things that is very helpful, and it's not the full picture. So that's what I focused on yesterday. But now I'm going to answer whoever asked a question. What are some techniques we can use to physically calm our bodies? So to physically calm your body, you want to use this when your body is dysregulated. So, for example, earlier today, I had I live in Israel. I had planes going very constantly, and they make this sound like. And after a few went in a row, I really was confident that I heard a siren, and my children were very far away from where I was. So so my body kind of reacted. After a few seconds, I realized that there was no siren, right? But my body was still escalated. So how can I bring down that escalation when it happens? So you might notice that your body has a fast heartbeat. You might notice that it's hard to think. I'm pointing to the front part of my brain. The front part of your brain is in charge of higher order thinking or complex problem solving. I see another question was sent in. I will get to it next. So you might notice sweating. You might notice taking in more oxygen, like so all those things are bringing out your fight or flight response. Your body is escalating. How can we bring down that body-based response? A few awesome ways. My favorite one, or I think the most direct and effective one, is using something called the dive reflex. This is a DBT skill that we teach in DBT. I'm happy to share it with you. So the dive reflex is a natural reflex that everyone is born with that happens when somebody dives into cold water. How do we dive into cold water? When we dive into cold water, we have cold water hit our face while we are tilted down and we're holding our breath. So in order to convince your body that you are diving into cold water, and therefore to activate the dive reflex, you need to get cold water here while holding your breath while tilted down. What does that do? When we activate the dive reflex, when we activate the dive reflex, it is the opposite of the fight or flight system. It's actually activating what's called the rest and digest system. Every system in your body has a way of keeping balance or homeostasis. So whatever act is activating, there is something to bring it back down afterward. So just like we have a response in case of an emergency called fight or flight that helps us to react to high levels of danger, we also have a system to bring that back down. The dive reflex is a way of activating that resting system. Why? Because if somebody is diving into cold water, what they actually need is to conserve energy. They want to be increasing their level of rest, not if they're being attacked by a tiger. Sorry, that's the classic therapist example, where they need to escalate their bodily based response, or in the case of what's happening now, if there is actually true danger and you do need a high level of reaction in your body in order to keep yourself safe. That's actually a fantastic thing. To be able to take in more oxygen, to be able to run quickly is very, very helpful and wonderful. So we do want to be supportive of that. Okay, so in order to activate the dive reflex, you have to just convince your body that you're diving into cold water. You do this by getting cold over here under your eyes, holding your breath while tilting your face down. You can do this most ideally by taking a bucket, filling it with cold water, adding a tray of ice, and dunking your head in for about 30 seconds. taking a few second break, doing this 3 times in a row is probably the best thing you can do to really, really regulate yourself. I highly recommend everybody do this at least one time, because you will not use this in a crisis unless you've done it before. If you want to learn more about it, there's a website called nowmattersnow.org, I believe. It's a great website to have access to a lot of great ideas on it, but they do have a whole section on cold water technique, and they show some videos of people using this. I recommend having other ways of using this because you don't always have access to a cold water bucket, but you can also fill up cold water in the sink and splash your face with it, or dunk your face into it, even better. There's a lot of good research on having a cold shower. Can also be very, very physiologically relaxing, although that doesn't sound so pleasant. It actually does just bring your internal temperature down. Of note, this works so effectively that if somebody does struggle with a heart condition, it is not recommended that they use this, because this will drop their heart rate. I encourage, like in my family, we keep little gel masks to put on your eyes. We keep them in the fridge so that they are there, they're accessible, they're cold. You can put them there and tilt your face down. That works well as well. Another strategy is quick and intense movement. I'm not referring to exercise. Exercise is a wonderful thing. It's a very healthy part of a person's life. I encourage everybody to have a daily movement practice as part of their lives. What I'm particularly referring to right now is vigorous and intense, brief and quick movement. So maybe 20 jumping jacks, 10 push-ups, running in place for 2 minutes. Anything like that is going to quickly escalate your heart rate. And then on the drop, it's going to bring it further down. Another one is called paced breathing, where we take longer, slower out breaths. So I know that there are a lot of breathing techniques you can get access to, or you might see passed around. With what the science behind it is that when the fight or flight response is being activated, we're taking in more oxygen in order to get blood around our body to the most important organs that are going to need it in order to fight or flee from the danger. So we are going to be doing something more like, but which is not dangerous, by the way. People get very concerned if that's happening for them. That's not dangerous. You won't run out of breath. You won't die from it. But if we're trying to activate that opposite reflex, the rest and digest system, we want to focus on longer, slower out breaths. So more like, so if you want to count to a certain pace, let's say like 5 in or 7 and 7 out, or 4 in, hold for 2, 8 out, any of those will work as long as you're focusing on long, slow out breaths. You're going to bring down that fight or flight response and increase the rest and digest response. So those are a bunch of different ideas for physiologically calming down the body. I do want to just remind people, though, people get frustrated with these skills that they don't feel better after. And the reason is because these skills are not going to make you feel better. That's not their purpose. That's not what they're there for. What these skills are here for is to immediately drop your body-based response enough that you can do other things. So you're going to have to follow these skills up with something else immediately. That might be distracting yourself, reading a book, going on a walk, talking to a friend and talking about nothing important. So distracting yourself might be a good next step. But at some point, you're going to want to address the things that are really bothering you, that are getting you to that escalated state, because that's going to really lead to not hitting that crisis point as often. But these skills can be great in the moment for dropping the intensity down. So I hope that was helpful in answering that question. Any other, there was another question sent in on Instagram. How do you explain what's dangerous and what's not? So again, this is going to depend on the age of the child or the adult child. And first of all, in terms of just establishing what is dangerous and what is not, there are real facts on the ground, right? For example, a siren is not dangerous. Sorry to say that, it can make some people sit there, but a siren itself is not dangerous. No, you can look up in your area what a siren means, because in different areas, it indicates a different timeline for when there is potential danger. So I think in my area, a siren means I have a minute and a half until there's going to be a danger. So the siren itself is not dangerous. First of all, the siren itself is not dangerous. A lot of people have a big reaction to the siren itself, but the siren itself is not dangerous. It's a sound. That's it. Its function is to warn of a potential danger. So the potential danger is potentially dangerous, but the siren itself is not dangerous. Does it make sense that we have those reactions and even body-based responses like I shared I had earlier today? Of course those are going to happen. And if I'm just being clear about the facts, which is helpful to ground ourselves in, the siren itself is not dangerous. Now, after the siren finishes and a rocket does come down, that rocket is actually dangerous. So that is why I'm using the siren as an indicator or as a messenger to myself to tell myself what to do in order to protect myself from danger. So that is not dangerous. However, we often connect dangers with the things that are around them, and then kind of make our brains connect everything together. And everything together is not dangerous, right? The room is not dangerous. The sound is not dangerous. The talking about it's not dangerous. Thinking about it's not dangerous, right? But those are all the things that tend to get associated with the initial reaction. So that can definitely happen. So in terms of explaining to children, you want to be clear about actual danger. There might be these sounds at, let's say, for example, I'm just saying as an example, there might be these sounds, and when these sounds happen, we want to get to a safe place so that we won't be in danger. And you can explain that. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I would say to any child. Any other questions? You can send it in the chat box, you can send it on Instagram, or you can unmute yourself and ask directly.
Hi.
Hi.
So how do I prepare myself emotionally if, let's say, the network or the internet or whatever stops working and there's terrorists running around? Like, let's say like the worst possible scenario. How do I prepare myself emotionally for something like that?
That is a wonderful question. So there's a famous psychologist, or was a famous psychologist, named Albert Ellis, who developed a particular treatment model called RABT. That's not the point of my story. But the point of my story is that once he was asked, based on his model, what if the catastrophe does happen? What if you're in the plane? Let's say you're in the plane is nosediving. You are going to die. Let's say, right? The catastrophe is happening. What do you do then? And he said, well, you just do the best you can. Because his point was that even if the worst catastrophe happens, you don't want to be screaming and crying like a lunatic. I mean, sorry to use that word, but that's not what you would want to do. What would you ideally want to do? Maybe you would, I'm just giving in this particular example. I can go to your example after. What I would ideally want to do maybe is call a loved one. Maybe if there's a potential to write a letter and seal it some way, I would want to do that. Maybe I would want to daven or do tshuva. Those are all things that would be really in my ideal picture, more than screaming and running around in circles. Does it make sense if I were to do that? Of course it makes sense. However, I can prepare myself to handle my life in the way that I would be most proud of or feel the best about. So I don't think you need to prepare yourself. I think that when we think about really, really, really scary things happening, we can't imagine surviving, because we imagine that we would just have to fall apart. We would just have to not be able to handle. And it's actually not true. You can handle, you can choose to handle in as an effective way as you possibly can, in a way that you feel proud of or feel good about. So what you can do, which you have the privilege of doing right now, that you can think of it like as a privilege or as an opportunity, you can mentally you can sit down and give yourself, and I wouldn't do this endlessly, because you could do this endlessly and then that's just feeding the unhelpful emotion. So I wouldn't want to do that. But what you can do is set a timer, let's say 20 minutes, and think about your worst possible catastrophe that you can think of, and then also think of, how would I want to handle this as effectively as possible in a way I would be so proud of, and write it out. You can then rehearse in your imagination yourself handling it well. And if you do that a few times, again, I don't want people doing this all day long. That would be really feeding the unhelpfulness. I don't want to be feeding that unhelpfulness. But if you do this 1 or 2 times a day, you're really setting yourself up to be able to be successful and to also feel massively empowered that you can handle your life in a way that you'll feel good about. So that's what I would encourage. Does that help answer that?
So let's say that I have an option to go back to New York.
Mhm.
Okay. Like I would be, getting screwed here because of my rent and everything, but um, like people in the Holocaust, right? So my grandma's parents, they escaped, and that's how they survived because they were in New York when it happened.
Mhm.
They left.
Mhm.
So I'm just thinking, is this like a semi-Holocaust? And I already spoke to someone about this, and it's always in the back of my mind, self-blame. If like something bad happens and I'm not prepared, I'm gonna end up saying, you knew this would happen. This was potential. You
So
could have left.
yeah, I think you're bringing up a lot of important points here I want to address. So first of all, is this a Holocaust? I don't think that any two situations we want to equate them. I don't think that's um correct. I don't think it's accurate. I think the situation is different. Although I definitely it can, if I heard somebody say today, like, let's just call it what it is. It's a pogrom. I hear that. I totally hear that. I think that's a very valid statement. And I think everything that you're saying is valid also. I just don't think that we can say that this is exact same as that. I think that there are other factors here. The fact that we're in Israel versus in a foreign country that's not our land, or that's not our promised land from Hashem, I think is different. I think also the fact that we have our own army is different. And I also think the fact that that we have been here for a while makes this more complex. I think that it would be totally valid for people to choose to leave Israel right now for their own self-protection or their own feelings, their own emotional feelings. As a family member of mine always says, every bullet has an address. That's what he says. And as callous as that is, but the point is that whatever is going to happen to us, Hashem is going to make happen to us regardless. And while we also have a responsibility to take care of ourselves and to do responsible things, we also can trust that when we make responsible decisions, still things can happen. And that doesn't mean that our decisions were wrong. So I think that's the other important piece that you brought up is, if I could have escaped and then something bad happens, then it's my fault. Well, also living in New York, let's say, for example, New York is filled with crime, and let's say something happens, then what are you going to say? So bad things can always happen to us. And if that is what Hashem wants, those things are going to happen. And so we can't control that per se. What we can do is continuously do our best over and over and over again. And that's it. That's all we can do. I hope that helps with that one. Somebody else asked, is feeling fear and danger unhelpful? Actually, no. Feeling fear when there is danger is fantastic. That is the function of fear. Every emotion has a function. Fear's function is to protect us from danger. If I always give the example of, like, if you're lying on the beach and there's a tsunami and you don't feel fear, guess what? You are going to die. So you're going to wake up, you're going to look at the tsunami and say, oh, wow, there's a tsunami. That's terrible. And then you'll be dead. So fear is actually fantastic when there is danger. Fear is what mobilizes your body to have the exact necessary response to handle true danger. So fear is very, very helpful when there is actual danger. Fear is unhelpful when there is no danger. Typically, it's somewhere in the middle. Very often we feel more fear than the situation warrants. And that amount, the unhelpful amount, is typically getting us in trouble. So learning to feel the helpful amount is really important. Okay, another question was sent in. My children are afraid after experiencing so many sirens. I've explained what you said. The siren means a bomb will fall and we need to get into a safe room and then we'll be safe. So now their fear is not being able to get. Okay, so I just heard one thing that you said there. We need to get into the safe room and then we'll be safe. So something that I explain to my children that I think is particularly helpful is that if you're not able to get to the safe room. So first of all, I explained that there are different options. You can go to the safe room. If you can't get to the safe room, you can go to a stairwell. If you can't get to a stairwell, you can go inside. If you can't go inside, you can go on the floor next to a wall and put your hands over your head. If there's a favorite adult, I did steal that line from Mr. Rogers, but if there's a favorite adult nearby, they will probably lay over you to help protect you. So I already kind of told them what could happen, what the options are. So showing them there are different options, because if my safety is totally dependent on one thing, then I'm unsafe if anything else happens. And that's not true, right? Actually, the bomb could fall nowhere near you, and then you could still be totally safe. So explaining those different options is really important. Explaining that that even if you don't get to the safe room, maybe still you'll be totally okay. It's our job to do the best we can, and we can't always do everything. And what children need to know is that it's not their job to keep themselves safe. It's their adults in their lives' job to keep them safe. And therefore, all the child needs to do is listen, or I like to say try to listen, because sometimes kids don't listen, and then we don't want to create that shame situation. But it's the child's job to do their best to listen to the adults. That's the child's job. The parent's job is to do their best to keep the child safe. And if everybody does their job, then we should be okay. But also, Hashem's in charge, and we can't make everything be the way we want it to be. And sometimes bad things happen, and that's okay too. And we're going to handle it, whatever it is. I don't know why this is popping in my head now, but I'm remembering the terrorist attack at Sparrow pizza store with the family, I don't remember their name, where the parents said Shema with the children as they were dying. And I think that's such a powerful, that even just back to what I was explaining before, that even in the crisis, you can handle it in a way that you're proud of or not. You can control your reactions. You can handle anything that comes your way. You can handle anything that comes your way, and to explain to your children that whatever happens, we're going to handle it. We're going to handle whatever happens. Okay, just to read the rest of this question, because I interrupted in the middle of the question. They were up for hours tonight with their concerns before they finally went to sleep in my room, which is a mamad. To me, that is not ideal. Okay, so the staying up late, I hear why that's not ideal. Not because first of all, because we want healthy sleep is so fantastically valuable in a more difficult time. I think we spoke about this last night, that when we're more vulnerable, everything is harder, and we are more vulnerable right now. Everyone is more vulnerable right now. So first of all, you can just be more gentle with everyone, but you can also understand and support yourself in taking care of those vulnerabilities. One important way is by getting sufficient quality sleep and doing whatever you can to prioritize making that happen. For your children, that didn't happen so easily tonight if they were up late. So that's something that I hear is something we don't want to be supportive of. We want them to get a great quality sleep. The other thing that I'm not so happy about hearing is that they were up for a long time, for hours, going over their concerns. So that to me sounds like that unhelpful fear kind of getting fed. So ways that we feed unhelpful emotions in 3 ways: through thoughts, sensations, and behaviors. And by talking over and over again about the fears, talking about the fears we want to do, but by going over and over and over again for an extended period of time, we're feeding the fear. We're keeping the unhelpful fear alive, which is what we don't want to be doing. So what we would want to do instead is to say, if you see that this is happening with your kids, you can say, let's talk for 15 minutes. I'm going to put on a timer. We're going to talk for 15 minutes. When the 15 minutes is up, we're all going to go to sleep. It's going to be hard. So what we're all going to do is we're going to take some nice calm breaths together. Depending on the age of your child, you can use language that's appropriate for them. We'll take nice calm breaths together, or we're going to drink some warm tea. I mentioned some ways earlier about regulating physiological responses. Those are some really intense ways of working very quickly on your body, but there are other simpler ways, like a cup of tea can still be helpful. a nice walk, a massage, even like gentle self-massage or putting on some cream or lotion or smelling a scented candle can all be ways of working on your body to physiologically bring down the temperature. So anything you can do to kind of build a little routine for them for calming down after giving attention to worry and fear can be helpful. So what you're doing there is you're setting a specific time for fear. I like to call it worry time. You're setting 15 minutes for worry time. We're worrying now, and we're allowed to worry. And worry makes perfect sense. And it also is okay. We can worry, but we don't want it to go on endlessly. If it can be not right before bed, that would be even better. If we can make it be a little bit earlier, like maybe if you set up a particular worry time, like 2 hours before their bedtime, that would be even better. Sleeping in your room, which is a mamad, does make sense to me. I don't think that's like a crazy thing to happen right now. If it's very, very hard for you and you really don't want that happening, then you just set that up that that's not an option. That no, we sleep in our own rooms, in our own beds. And that's what we do. We just are okay with that. If that's what we're doing right now, then we're setting that up that has to happen. So if a child does come in the room, you bring them out of the room. Or you say, like, as long as you stay in the room, we're not going to sleep in this room. So you make it like a complete, like, this is not an option. So I always just encourage parents that if something is an absolute hard no for you, then we're allowed to have absolute no's, but you have to be able to back up your no's with real consequences. Otherwise, otherwise your word doesn't mean anything, and that would be terrible. So parents are often giving commands all day long that aren't being backed up, and then your children are not listening to your word. Your word doesn't mean anything. So what we'd rather do is only say the things that are hard for sures. So if for you, not sleeping in your room is a hard no, it cannot happen, it's not an option, then I would make that very clear to them early on, make a plan of what we're going to do for bedtime, make a plan for worry time. You can set all this up in advance and really set them up to be okay with it. Yeah, I hope that was helpful. Any other questions? I'll give one more minute in case of anybody's thinking of something.
I hope it's okay to ask. Oh, sorry. You spoke about Emunah and fears and how to connect it. I would love to hear it again. Thank you.
Yeah. So both, I think sometimes we confuse that fear and Emunah can't both be on the table, that if we have Emunah, then we wouldn't feel fear. And I think that's kind of insulting to Hashem. Hashem is smart enough to know how to create humans, and he created humans with a fear response. And that's part of our humanity. So there's nothing wrong with feeling fear. Actually, in fact, like I was starting to explain before, every emotion is highly functional and serves a very important purpose. And the purpose of fear, and by the way, fear I use as just one catch-all term, but it really encompasses worry, nervousness, anxiety, stress, are all fear-based. So they all work the same. So fear's function is to protect us from danger. That's what its job is. That's what it's there for. Okay. Now fear can show up, fear can be there. And I can also at the same time know in my head, because it may not yet travel to my heart or to my way I'm feeling about things. I can know in my head that Hashem is in charge. Hashem loves me. There are great hashkafos in Judaism. Trust me, we have a good religion here. I think I saw something passed around by Rav Yitzchak Breitowitz today that had some really powerful ways of thinking about hashkafically about what's going on right now. I know that there are other shiurim going on, and I encourage people to go get chizuk from them, but don't invalidate yourself for having the emotions that you're having. Those are two separate things. Understanding intellectually that Hashem is in charge of the world, that Hashem loves us, that Hashem only does what's best for us, that like kol kadur yesh ketovet, that every bullet has its own address. Understand, and I mean that in every philosophical sense, every insulting thing that a person says to us, Hashem is in charge of where that's going to go. So that's always an option. That's always something that can happen, that I can understand that God is in charge of the world and that bad things can happen and those can all be true. And I can understand that intellectually and not yet feel it in my heart. And that's okay. I don't have to like insult myself or be not gentle with myself for that. So I can allow for whatever emotions are showing up while also surrounding myself with healthy hashkafos or healthy philosophical ways of understanding God, understanding Hashem, understanding Emunah, understanding faith. Just trying to be mindful of different people in our audience. Understanding the different ways of thinking about this. I can surround myself with healthy ways of thinking about that. I can make for, and actually, I would really encourage if you do find some things that really resonate with you, if you find particular ways of making meaning out of the situation or ways of thinking about the situation that really resonate with you, I really encourage you to write it down. It can be on a little piece of paper. It can be a little Post-it note. It can be a sticky note on your desktop. It can be a background on your phone, but it can also be, you can make a big, fat, large banner to hang next to your bed as well, or to hang in your living room as well, saying the sentences that help you ground in meaning, ground in purpose, ground in your values, in how you understand things. So a sentence might be something like "Haboteach b'Hashem chased tovenu," those who trust in God are surrounded by good. So I'm just giving that as an example of a sentence that might give you a lot of strength and make you feel better. If that's helpful for you, surround yourself with it. Kind of like I was saying before, give yourself the grace that you are not automatically going to feel good. Bad things happen and we don't feel good about them. For example, when somebody dies, we don't say Hatov v'Hametiv. This is a wonderful thing. We say blessed is blessed is the one who executes judgment. Why? Because we don't get to see bad things in this world as good, but ultimately everything Hashem does is good. I can understand that intellectually and not feel it, and that can be okay. But in order for that to be okay, I need to validate my own feelings, allow for my own feelings, while also continuously grounding myself in my bigger understandings about healthy hashkafos or healthy Jewish philosophies. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you so much. I have for kids, like how do we like teach it to kids?
Okay, that's a really, really hard question because I think it's very easily misconstrued. You don't want to tell kids is something, let's say something very simple like Hashem loves us and Hashem only does good. Well, then what if something bad happens? Does that mean Hashem doesn't love us? Or I think I gave the example today to somebody. What if I see mommy do something wrong, like say a bad word or get angry or rip toilet paper on Shabbos? If I see mommy do something bad, does that mean she's going to die? So we don't want to give them healthy hashkafos that are not able to be understood on their level, because that's going to almost invite potential problems. And they're not going to come to you because you clearly are okay and they're not. So they're going to just hold that worry. So in order to give them that, what you can do is say things like things that kind of I think the most important rule, if I could give a rule about this, is say as many facts as you can, as many like full truths as you can. So Hashem loves us and he only gives us good is kind of missing the full picture. So maybe saying something like Hashem loves us, he only gives us good, and sometimes bad things happen and that doesn't change that he loves us. Or we are going to daven to Hashem and Hashem is going to give us whatever we need. Sometimes that's bad and sometimes that's good. But being able to just the most important piece of this is being absolutely honest. The second you start wavering from complete and full honesty, that's what gets you in trouble for parenting in general, because that's what starts to create anxiety issues in kids because they can't trust you, because they know they know for whatever way they know, and then they can't trust you. They can't be honest with you because clearly the truth is unacceptable or very bad, and that's just hard. So that's what I would encourage.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Okay. So Bezrat Hashem, I do plan to try to offer this each day. You can please send questions in advance. You can also send questions during the talk as well. Either one is totally fine. I'll aim to give about 30 to 45 minutes each day in the nighttime. Israel time is my goal. I will announce it usually over WhatsApp. So if you don't have access to our status, please join our status so you can get those updates. The number is in the chat box. I'll say it again, is 917-494-3708. Also, Bezrat Hashem, I will upload this recording to our YouTube channel and we'll share the link for that as well. Okay, I hope this was helpful and we should meet under better circumstances.
You spoke about the book that for children. Did it come out? Like, where could I download it?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I'm calling it a book, but it's really a download. So you have to print it yourself. But I printed copies for my kids, stapled them, and gave them each their own copy. And they're so happy to carry it around, to bring it with them into the Mamad. So I highly encourage that. It's on our website. You can go to the cbtdbtcenter.com/store, and it's in our store. It's a free download. You just click it and enter your email.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good night.
And you can share it with anybody, by the way. It's not, it's intended to be shared.
I want to thank you very much, Kylie, but this was great.
Yeah. Okay. You're welcome. Take care, everybody.
Yeah.